Battleline podcast, great show with Jimmy Allen. Just myself here this episode, but with Jimmy Allen from Puddle of Mud. So don't tune out, formerly of Puddle Mud and Against All Will. We talk some awesome stuff, and if you're a rock fan, you're gonna want to check this one out. We get into the Pantera reunion of sorts happening with two of the members, of course, because the Abbott brothers are no longer with us. You'll also hear some just awesome rock stories between his time in Puddle of Mud, but also stuff with Kiss. We have a story involving Pamela Anderson. It's a fun one because I just got done with it, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it if you love that rock talk stuff, which I do, and Jimmy does, and Jimmy has been a friend of the show. And of course, if you've been with us a while, then you already know Jimmy Allen created the theme music that you hear top of show and bottom of show, so he is just a friend of ours. And he was also at the Copper Ticket event because Jimmy is in Kansas City, which is not far from Fort Scott, Kansas, and he came out and had a blast. And it was cool for me meeting him for the first time. With that, Ned is something that I use every day. They're just a great product. They're a great company, and they're putting out just awesome new stuff. As you heard on the last episode that we did, not the last episode, but the last time that we had on Rhett from Ned, they have new bomb out, and they do just excellent things with CBD. So yeah, a daily ritual is a practice that helps you stay grounded. It's an intentional act where you take a few minutes to reconnect with and take care of yourself. Daily routines are mundane and make you feel stuck in a rut. Daily rituals are meaningful and help you become the person you want to be. Transforming your life can be as simple as bringing more attention to the things you do every day. So number one, get present, slow down and check in on your five senses. Number two, think positive, take a deep breath and say affirmations. And three, connect with your North Star, smile, and think about what really matters. These products are science-backed, nature-based solutions, and they offer an alternative to prescription and over-the-counter drugs. I have that 300 milligram daily blend in my refrigerator. I like to keep it cold and then have it under my tongue at night because it helps me fall asleep for sure. Ned's CBD is cold extracted from the world's purest USDA certified organic hemp in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. They have full transparency. Ned shares third-party lab reports, who farms their products, and their extraction process, all right there on their site. Ned's CBD products have over 2,000 five-star reviews. So become the best version of yourself and get 15% off Ned's products if you're a new listener and new subscriber with the code Battleline. So go to helloned.com/Battleline. Link is right there in the description, or enter the code Battleline at checkout. So that's HELLONED.com/Battleline to get 15% off. If you've been thinking of trying CBD and you don't know where to start, this is the best company to go with. Trust us on this. If you've tried other CBD, and we have listeners who have, a lot of people have said it's done nothing for me until I went with Ned. So thank you, Ned, for sponsoring our show and offering our listeners a natural remedy for some of life's most common health issues. Last episode, we had on Sean Lake from Bubs Naturals, and we spoke in depth about what Bubs Naturals is doing and how Sean really is on a journey along with the other co-founder of Bubs in helping people become the best version of themselves and helping people transform their lives with the right supplements and, of course, in conjunction with diet and exercise. So they have their MCT oil powder. They also have their collagen protein. Their collagen protein, I would say, is really their flagship product, but they also have the apple cider vinegar gummies. Those are great. And then my friend George, who's a big was a big runner really, but has just become a big exerciser in terms of tennis, in terms of yoga. He really swears by the Fountain of Youth formula, and he uses that every single day. So check that out. Post workout, you're going to love to get the collagen protein in, and it's something that you're not getting in with your diet. And also, you're helping the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation in the process, which is helping the families of veterans. So check them out. BubsNaturals.com. Promo code Battleline. BubsNaturals.com. Promo code Battleline for 20% off. And when you support our sponsors, you're supporting this show. So if you're a listener of this show, keep in mind, guys, we're not on Patreon or anything like that. We don't charge anyone for episodes for like the archive like some people do. And people ask all the time, how can I support your show? How can I keep you guys going? And the way to do that Look, if you don't have any money, leave us a review. That stuff helps us out. But if you have any money and you want to check out some great products, support our sponsors like Ned and like Bub's Naturals. And with that, let's get right into everything.
From Omaha, Nebraska to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Twitch is on. Motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
You know, Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battleline podcast.
Battleline podcast, and the music that you're hearing under me, as always, every show is none other than Jimmy Allen, who is on with me for this show. And the first time you were on was actually episode 31. It's been 2 years, and prior to that, we had different music. And you were like, "Let me give you guys some intro music that I created." And then we ended up using you for the outro music too. And we get so many compliments on it. People want you to throw that up on Spotify and iTunes and all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that you guys use. Sounds great. You know the title of the song?
Oh, isn't it called "Where Dreams Go to Die" or something? Or
yeah,
Dreams...
yeah, you do. Yeah, good. Yeah, you're good, man. You're good.
I remember when you sent it to me.
Yeah.
I guarantee if you put that on streaming or put that up, people would love to hear, because I get messages, and I could even tell you if people want to tweet or not tweet, Instagram at Jimmy Allen Songwriter, and let him know you want the song up to stream or download or buy. I think people want to hear it.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, of course. So to give Jimmy's background, really, for the new people, other than creating our theme music, of course, Jimmy is songwriter, guitarist, best known for his work in Puddle of Mud and Against All Will, the creator of all the music you hear, once again, top and bottom of show. And yeah, the thing I should tell the audience, and you're wearing the Fort Scott Munitions hat, is I got to meet you for the first time when I went to and I got it right here, I think you have it too, went to the Copper Ticket event with Chris Peranto, of course, and got to hang out at your place, nerded out, saw all the stuff on the walls that people are seeing now if they're watching on YouTube, and there we go. Had a great time meeting you, man, and seeing Kansas City and also Kansas for the first time.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was really awesome. I was good to hang out with you, and good to hang out with all the boys and Tonto and, you know, Ryan D and Ryan Kraft and, you know, Matt Davis, all those guys. You know, it was great to hang out with everybody. Michael Billings doing the stuff, you know, a lot of the gun guys there. That was really fun. I mean, it was you know, it was an honor to be there. I was really stoked with one of my best friends from like way back from grade school, Kevin Matlock. It was a great time. We both were like, on the way home, we couldn't stop talking about how cool it was. You know, everybody was so sweet, and, you know, to, you know, get to have that kind of meal and that kind of spread over at the Kraft family. That was pretty cool. What a spread, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the property was awesome, and they really just do a great job at Fort Scott. I didn't really know what to expect. I knew it was like a large property, and then they also had the range on the property, but going there and seeing for yourself, it was an amazing experience for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I appreciate everybody's time, and thanks for the invite, you and Tonto. Thank you for allowing us to come.
Oh, of course. And I mean, right when I got off the plane, you're right by the airport in Kansas City, so I got to check out the house and see everywhere where you get to record your work, and also all the stuff on the walls. And really, I was going to mention, like, speaking of accolades and the awards behind you, the latest one really, and I don't know if you received anything for it, but I've mentioned it, and I mentioned it on social media, was Blurry, which you were a writer on, reaching 100 million views on YouTube, which is a major accomplishment, man. That shows the longevity of that song.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that was it. That was really cool. I think I'm supposed to get an award. I think my manager, he's a great guy. He kind of did up an award for me. I think he got a hold of the YouTube people or whatever to get an award for that. 100 million. I think it's at 102 or something now. It's like, you know, it's, you know, that's great to be able to see that, you know, to see how much, you know, the song has grown over the last 20 years or whatever. And then to have Hardy do it, I turned you onto that, right?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. And he's had success with it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, it's like my sister went and saw him live and she was like, did you know he's doing Blurry? And I was like, no, I didn't. And then I looked up and the video was right there. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool. You know, that's a tip to the hat, you know?
Yeah, and he did a great job with it too. I think he made it his own while at the same time staying true to what you and the other guys in Puddle of Mud wrote.
Yeah, really close. That's what I thought, you know, and I was kind of thinking it was going to be more of a country kind of thing or whatever, because, you know, he's kind of got that twang to him or whatever. I love his other stuff too. I mean, he's got great material. Hardy really, and it kind of reminds me of a cross between Kid Rock and, you know, Johnny Cash or something, but to hear kind of the rock, you know, kind of come out of him, it was really close to the original. I thought really they kept it really similar to that.
Yeah, he did. And I think I think there are a lot of country guys who just embrace that era of music and what people like you accomplished. And that's why you have someone like Aaron Lewis out there who is from that whole world and has now become a huge star in his own right in the country scene. And at the same time, I think at first people were skeptical. They were like, is this Aaron kind of riding a wave? Is he just trying to reinvent himself? But I feel like Stained and the current music he's doing now solo, that is him. That's legitimately what he likes and what he listens to, and it's not about following trends.
Yeah, and yeah, he's got a lot of grief from all this too. It's like, you know, congrats to Aaron for staying strong, because, you know, it's like they've really came after him pretty hardcore, and he's just really just doing music that he, you know, his dad and granddad probably played for him. You know, he's kind of trying to do something different, but everybody's kind of like coming after him for like he's some crazy, you know, redneck or whatever. But it's like, you know, congrats to him for, I mean, going #1 and stuff, you know, in a different genre. That doesn't happen very often, you know, in our industry. You know, it's really cool that he got to experience that, and is keeping on with Stain too, I think, you know.
Yeah, and I think people sometimes don't realize it. Musicians in general tend to listen to all different genres. They're influenced by all different genres. And I think it's kind of weird how people feel you're a rock guy, you have to stick to rock. But when I listen to what you've done with Against All Will, or even getting turned on by you to your other band Cooker, like you've done all different genres of music. And if you listen to the intro and outro of this show, it's different. And I could see you writing for something for a country artist, or writing something probably with a guy like Hardy and having a hit with that as well.
Yeah, and I totally dig that. I love the collaboration. I really love doing stuff that's different, you know. You know, you kind of break out of the mold. You know, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, trying different things sometimes, you know. I've tried a few hip hop things. I didn't really like it or whatever, but it's like I still listen to hip hop. I still love rock. I still love metal. I still love country. I still love all that stuff. I just don't, you can't really, with writing, I can't really pigeonhole myself as one thing, but it's like, if I would say just rock, you know.
Do you still have like the hunger to write another hit that's going to be something in the vein of Blurry or anything else, you know, She Hates Me or any of the other hits that you've written? Because it's almost like when I talk to Jim West on here, and the fact that Jim is now in his, obviously older, but in his 60s, but trained boxers, trained UFC fighters. And when I talk to Jim, I could tell he's still hungry to train like the next big UFC fighter, the next boxer. And I don't think that's ever left him. Like, do you listen to songs on the radio and think, I got to be doing so? So do you have something that you're working on? Do you have stuff in the works that you think we're going to hear soon?
Yeah. I've got, you know, it's coming along. Everything's kind of taking its course, but, you know, it's like, I want to do something a little more, maybe country, you know, country, a little bit more, maybe Southern rockish, I should say, not country, you know.
Like Skinner, that type of genre.
Yeah, something just down home cooking kind of groove, something that's real simple, not a lot of electronics and all that other bullshit that's in there.
Yeah, because I think the thing about the stuff that you've written, whether it's Drift and Die or Blurry, any of the stuff we've mentioned, it's timeless, and that's why it's still played on radio, and it's not even just played on rock radio. Something like Blurry is played on a white FM, and it's on YouTube, being viewed by hundreds of millions. Is there anything that you're hearing now that you're like, this is incredible, this is going to last the next 20 years? What's out there that inspires you, maybe?
I mean, really, I don't really like. Yeah, there's not a lot I hear right these days that really I feel like is going to really stick. I mean, here and there I'll hear something, but most of the time it's kind of like the music industry is kind of in a tough spot right now. I think that I don't really pay attention to the whole pop thing very much. There's a lot of that which I guess the younger kids, they might still be into that whole thing in 20 years. But like for rock, I really can't think of anything right now. What do you think? I mean, like any bands that, you feel like have that kind of staying power?
Well, we text back and forth about music now and again. And I told you I was really impressed by that new Turnstile album. From start to finish. I really dug it because I think it's so eclectic. I hear punk rock in there, I hear hardcore in there, but then there's also some shredding, and there's also some melodies going on in terms of the vocals. It's not just all the screaming vocals. So that new Turnstile album is like the best thing I've heard in many years.
Yeah, I really like it. Another band I kind of I got turned on to a couple years ago that I'm really digging was Middle Class Rut. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. They're Middle Class Rut. They've been going for a while. I think they did a tour with Alice in Chains. And it's like, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, for some reason, the singer kind of reminds me of a little bit of Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction. He kind of has that kind of vibe to him, where it's like, he can kind of go really high, but it's kind of got that, I guess, and it's only two dudes. It's like a drummer, and then that dude plays guitar and bass at the same time. So check that out. Middle Class Rut, they're really cool.
Yeah, I will. I feel like the stuff that's been impressive kind of are those mid-tier bands and artists like the Hardy, Turnstile that are playing the club level shows. The stuff on the arena level, a lot of it I haven't been into. I know that when I was doing Appetite for Distortion with Brando, which we talked about rock and talked about Guns N' Roses and all that, I remember early on the name Greta Van Fleet kept coming up, and they were like, these are the new guys. And like, I've listened to it, and personally, it's no offense, I don't know them, but like, it doesn't do anything for me. And it just sounds like this is what a modern day Led Zeppelin would sound like. It doesn't sound very original to me. Like with what you did with your bands, when I hear it, you could hear the influence maybe of the grunge era, and I'm putting air fingers quote because I know it's just like a genre that the media came up with, but you could hear the influence, yet at the same time I think you guys were doing something completely original, as opposed to when I hear Greta Van Fleet, I just hear we're trying to sound like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, I kind of get that too, but I have ran into a lot of people that really are hip to them. That it's like, and that's what I kind of say. I was like, yeah, it sounds like they're trying to be a little bit like Zeppelin or whatever. And it's like, you kind of hear that, but it's like, it's probably good for the whole genre of rock to get maybe some young kids into them. Yeah. Then they can kind of go back from that, but it really doesn't do much for me, except that actually, when I've seen them live on something, they're actually playing, which is a cool thing. Sure. Where it's just them and a laptop, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. And yeah, there's a lot of that for sure, of the backing tracks. And Eddie Trunk is infamous for ranting about all that, which I listen to all the time. But yeah, I think the bands that have staying power are always the bands that come out and you go, this is unlike anything I've ever heard before. That's the stuff that has staying power, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, and like Eddie Trunk's been saying, though, it's like these people spend their hard-earned money to go see a show. It's kind of, you need, as a band, you need to have your stuff together to where you can kind of play the show and not rely on a laptop. And that whole thing's kind of crazy to me, because it's like I've I've been in bands where we've had backing tracks and stuff like that for a couple songs, but that even made me feel like it was cheapening the whole deal.
What stuff had backing tracks?
Like Blurry has some stuff on it. When we did with Puddle, we did Spin You Around. It had some vocal harmonies and stuff on there. Puddle has, a good 3 or 4 songs where they kind of had a little bit of electronic help going on.
So you would rather the song be, if you were in charge at that time, those songs be completely live, because you're talking about, for the audience who doesn't know, and as you know, I'm kind of a nerd for all this stuff. You were one of the original founding members, and then you went away for quite a number of years, and you came back for a few years and toured with them.
Yeah, basically Wes asked me to come back after Paul quit, and we toured. We basically did a few tours, and then we got to play the Times Square thing on New Year's Eve. That whole thing on top of the Coke sign. That was a really cool gig and stuff. Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where, Wes kind of likes to be the boss of everything, where it's like he's kind of got a bunch of guys in there filling in on stuff. But, he asked me back, and, we kind of came up with some stuff, Schizophrenic Psycho being one of those songs. And I kind of got the shitty end of the stick on that, when it comes to publishing and stuff like that. So we kind of had our second falling out then, and ever since it's just kind of been a weird deal. It's like, I hope everything comes back around where, he can have another hit like Blurry or She Hates Me or stuff like that. I've reached out to him to work on some stuff, and, it's kind of a lukewarm response. He'll want to for a little bit, and then he won't want to. So, I hope it works out.
Well, the interesting thing for me too was when they put out that latest album, which I do think is a really good album personally. I don't know your feelings on it, but this was prior to even hearing the old stuff and you sending me the original album that came out before Come Clean. I was looking at the credits, because I do always look at that stuff, and the first song on that album is You Don't Know, which was co-written by you, but was on the original Puddle Mud album, and is really like a rework of that song. So I mean, it would be cool to just see more Jimmy Allen songwriting credits on whatever they put out next, although there's been a huge gap in between releases. And you do have to wonder, when are they even going to put out another album, and is it even worth it? Because they do very well touring. I've seen multiple shows of Puddle of Mud, and they fill out venues, but in terms of like a band like Puddle of Mud putting out music in 2022, I don't know if the audience is there as much as the audience who's going to go out to a live show and see the classic hits.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And it was cool that they did You Don't Know, and that was like, You Don't Know was one of the first kind of Drift and Die and You Don't Know were my first real attempts at writing my own songs. I was 21, so both those songs, You Don't Know and Drift and Die, were basically the first songs I'd ever written as original, and to have them even be on an album and to have them be, successful is pretty cool to me, because that was just my first stab at it, just trying to get, so because we were playing as Puddle, we were playing a lot of Alice in Chains and Nirvana and Black Sabbath and that. And those guys were all, we were making money playing covers, because that was kind of the time when covers were kind of the thing. And so, it's kind of a weird deal to like go, hey guys, I'm tired of playing covers. Let's write some of our own stuff. And those guys didn't really want to. And I was like, well, I'll just do it then, so, that's how those songs came about that way,
Yeah, and those songs are still great. When I heard You Don't Know on the new album, like I said, hearing it for the first time, I was like, this is great. This sounds like classic Puddle of Mud. And I do think there's a reason for that when you look at the songwriting credits. But hey, I wanted to talk to you about this. We were texting this morning, and I didn't even know what we were going to get into this show beyond just what you're up to in Kansas City. And we've spoken about your history before. If people want to check out, of course, our first episode, which was episode 31, we really get deep into all of that stuff and kind of your rise and probably fall, you would say, when you were living in LA, got into drugs, got off drugs. We got into all that stuff, but I didn't want to rehash all the same stuff. And you and I could talk about rock for hours, of course. And I saw this morning this article that is making headlines that Pantera is going to be touring again for the first time in over 20 years, because the last tour was the Extreme Steel Tour 2001, which I was at. And of course you texted me back and we're like, what about the other two guys? We know the Abbott brothers are no longer here. And the thing is, like, they had a good, what would it be? They had a good 15 years or so to get back 3 members, and now you only have 2 members left. And clearly, I would say the Abbott brothers, Dimebag Darrell and Vinny Abbott, probably would not have wanted this to go on.
Nah, dude, I really don't. I know. I think about it and I'm like, man, the whole Pantera story is like, why haven't they made a biopic about this? I mean, their dad was their first, manager, producer, because he had studios and stuff. That's what got them those first, record deals and stuff. And then, to have Dime murdered like that, I mean, it's like the biopic would be like better than any movie they could ever even dream up. I mean,
true.
So it's like, I think most of the people that were into Pantera, I'm not discrediting Phil or Rex at all, great at what they do. But people that went to see Pantera went to see the Abbott brothers. I mean, they really, they exuded that musicianship, and it's like, you can have Zach Wilde fill in for Dimebag because I know they're bros and everything, but I don't think that Zach, maybe they'll have multiple people doing it, or I don't know. I mean, I can see Zach doing it, but there's not a lot of guitar players that I can see reaching down and trying to get into fill Dime's shoes, because those shoes are unfillable,
Yeah, and then also for a lot of bands with drummers, and I could even bring this up. We've had the members of Amur on the show, and not recently, but it's been a while, saw the article about Amur replacing their most recent drummer, and I texted Frankie from Amur about it, and he said, yeah, we'll be able to find another drummer. It's not a huge deal. And in most bands, you can replace a drummer pretty easily. Vinnie Paul, though, is almost like a Tommy Lee. He's irreplaceable. And the minute you hear a Vinnie Paul drum lick, this. I don't know if drum lick would be the word, but you hear the way that Vinny drums on songs. There was no one, and it's not even that he was the greatest of all time, but he had a signature sound, that double bass sound that I right away when you hear him, and I don't know who would replace him either.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too when we were talking earlier. I was thinking, our buddy Roy Mayorga from Soulfly, and he was in Stone Sour, and then he is in Ministry right now, but he was filling in for the rest of those Hell Yeah shows. So I'm sure that he's one of those dudes that would probably be, that would be in line for that. But you're right, though. I mean, Vinny had the double bass and all that sound, and a big shoes to fill, man. I'm just both those guys. I mean, and that's the thing in this day and age is it going to happen? Are they just going to take the money and run, kind of thing? It's like, is it going to happen? Because it's like, there's so many things that variables out there that, could get in the way of everything. And especially with, filling those shoes for both guys, and their brothers, and the whole thing would be like, oh, if I were the other two, if I was Rex and Phil, I'd be like nervous. I'd be like, I don't know, guys, maybe we should take the money and run.
I doubt he would ever do it, but Tommy Lee, you ever hear the 94 Motley Crue album?
Yep.
I like that album. I love it. If you listen to the song Smoke the Sky on that album, you could hear that is Tommy Lee doing his best Vinnie Paul, and he kills it. He could play that same way that Vinnie Paul plays if and also that would be a huge draw. That would kind of make up for a little of the lack of appeal of these two guys. I doubt it would happen, but it would be cool.
Yeah, that's one guy I was thinking too, would be Tommy Lee. And that's what they're probably looking for too. They're probably looking for some extra star power to draw in some other guys,
Well, here's the thing. I probably will go. I got to see Pantera, as I said, on the final tour in 2001, but I think it would be an amazing show. I've seen Phil many times with Down, always puts on a killer performance. I even got to see Rex on stage with Down when he was in Down. I will probably go, but the fact of the matter is this: there's so much selling power in a name. Because if they went on tour, and I don't think anyone would have a problem with it, if they went on tour as Phil Anselmo and Rex Brown play Pantera, if that was what was on the marquee, people would love it, but that would probably sell bigger clubs. And I think if they have the name Pantera, that will sell arenas.
Yeah, and it's like, I think that's what they're thinking too, and I've seen them 3 or 4 times, man. I saw it back in the day in the 90s. I saw them, and they tore it up. I mean, they were one of those bands that were unstoppable. And it kind of stinks that Phil kind of put a stop to all that, because, man, I know it was both Vinny's and Dime's, dreams to, make that band, that was their band. They started, even they had that Terry guy that was singing before Phil.
Yeah, Terry Glaze.
Yeah, Terry Glaze. Yeah. So it's like, it's kind of heartbreaking to me to be just thinking, oh man, it's like, Phil, why couldn't you got your shit together earlier and made these guys, they were reaching out to him. That's why they started Hell Yeah, or not Hell Yeah,
Damage
but
Plan,
Plan. Yeah. They were just heartbroken. They were like, man, this is our dream, and then, Phil, it's always with singers, it's always kind of an ego thing, man,
Hope you guys are enjoying this show. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you're not, subscribe to us on YouTube. But if you're watching on YouTube, how do you like that hat Jimmy Allen is wearing, the Fort Scott Munitions hat? Of course, it's because he was there with us at Fort Scott and has become a friend of the team over at Fort Scott Munitions. And Jimmy is a shooter. He's not just a guitar player. So he is now shooting with Fort Scott Munitions. He is converted over. He is a believer. And Fort Scott Munitions is, of course, the longest sponsor of this podcast, the longest running sponsor. And we love what they do. They're a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition that is designed to tumble upon impact in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with each pull of the trigger. Fort Scott Munitions is available throughout privately owned businesses in all 50 states, as well as now on their website. They're caught up for now, so check them out, fsm.com. It's as simple as that, fsm.com. Use the exclusive promo code Battleline for 15% off your order. That's an exclusive offer for the Battleline audience. fsm.com, promo code Battleline, fsm.com, promo code Battleline. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline podcast. And we're talking guns, we're talking ammo, we got to talk night vision here. And if you're looking for the best night vision out there, if you're in the market for it, Photonis Defense is who you got to go with. Now you can have the superpower to see in the dark with the Viper Binocular Night Vision System by Photonis Defense, which is the global leader in night vision solutions, providing more high-end night vision capabilities than anyone. Military, law enforcement, and public safety end users utilize Photonis Defense solutions to give them the edge at night in tactical situations and rescue operations. Hunters, shooters, boaters, and outdoor enthusiasts can rely on the Photonis Defense Viper Binocular to help them master the darkness, which is their trademark, master the darkness. The new Viper Binocular system carries the same features and benefits as the Photonis Defense Viper Monocular, with a ruggedized body, and harnesses the power of the Echo intensifier tubes, giving you sharper images, reduced halo, and industry-leading ultra-fast auto-gating across the range of dynamic operating conditions. Visit photonisdefense.com for more information, or look for Photonis Defense product options from your night vision dealer. Once again, Photonis Defense, PHOTONIS Defense.com. We got plenty of more of great stuff to get to with this interview, so let's get right back to it. Jimmy Allen. Yeah, I like I said though, I would still probably go. And the thing is, for the casual fan, they see that Pantera marquee, and if they're a big Pantera fan, they're gonna go, Pantera's touring, I gotta
Yeah.
go. And people forget that the casual fans sometimes they don't even know who's in the band. I think
Yeah.
with Pantera, people do know those personalities, but the thing is also with them too, if you were to know the members of the band, because the people do know all the members of the band. People know Dimebag, they know Vinny, and they know Phil. I would say the casual fan wouldn't be able to name Rex Brown, as great of a bass player as he is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. It's like, and I read his book. His book was good. Did you
I
read
read it,
Red?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You and I both are big, readers on the rock and roll books and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I figured you did. Yeah, it was a good book. It's like I get into that stuff because it's kind of like reading album liner notes and stuff like that. You know who everybody is, but you're right. The most casual fans don't know who produced what, who wrote what, who's in the band. They just like, hey, we like the music. That's it.
Also, it was a good book, but it was some insight into why they never did reunite, because I think, and I kind of get the feeling that Rex regrets writing some of that, because the book was a lot of like shit talking of Vinny and a little
Yeah.
bit of Dimebag, but very much of Vinny and even some of Phil. And I always feel like, man, why put out a book like that? I just think it's, it was an entertaining read, but at the end of the day, it really strains relationships. And I'm sure now with Vinnie Paul dying, you got to feel a little bit differently and be like, man, why couldn't we patch things up? Because all the stuff that he says about Vinny, that from what I remember, and it's been years since I read it, it's all very minor at the end of the day. He didn't do anything horrible to him. And it's like, keep those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, you're right. I mean, on a lot of that stuff, it's like you read some of the stuff and you're just like, whoa. And you're like, but the thing is Vinny was kind of he was the businessman in the band. And, when the businessman, when you're in a band and the businessman's trying to keep everything level and get everybody paid and make sure everybody's, there's a little bit of resentment there, because I can say that honestly, with me and Puddle, I was the businessman and I got a lot of, resentment towards me from the other guys because I was like, no, we're going to do this. No, we're going to do this. We're going to, this is what we're going to do. And then when kind of Wes was given free reign, was Fred Durst was the businessman now. It was like he didn't have to worry about that. He couldn't, and he ended up resenting Fred. I think he still does a little bit. I think he resents Fred, so it's like, hey, when you're the businessman in the band and you're just trying to look out for the band and try to become successful and be able to pay the bills, the other band members usually kind of give you grief and you're kind of like, well, dude, it's not like I'm lining my pockets. I'm just trying to do things straight and do things right, and get this band to a point to where we can be semi-successful. But it's like, good thing that Fred Durst was the gatekeeper for Wes, because that's what really pushed it over the edge. And thank you to Fred Durst. I mean, I've hung out with him a few times. He was a decent dude to me. Great guy for the music and stuff like that, for my music and for Puddle. I mean, so I don't really resent him, but I hear people that like to bash on him, and I'm kind of like, hey man, he's a smart businessman. He's he knows what he's doing.
He also obviously had an ear for talents, because just the same way we were mentioning Stained and Aaron Lewis earlier, I mean, he picked two huge winners between Puddle of Mud and Stained.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the thing is like, like both those bands are radio bands where he knew, hey, I'm going to push these guys to radio. And it's like, I hear Stained almost every day on the rock station here. I hear Puddle too, I mean, good songs, good rock songs, they really don't die as long as they kind of start off and have a fan base. And it's been a while.
Why he was probably smart to pick. Yeah, exactly. It's been a while. He's right to pick these bands who could write these major rock hits, as opposed to probably what people would have predicted. He could have signed a bunch of rap metal groups that were similar to Limp Bizkit and probably would have been forgotten 5 years later.
Yeah. And it's like, and Limp Bizkit, it's like, they're another band that's like, you may not like them, but I'm one of those guys that I was like, dude, those first 2 albums that they put out were phenomenal. You know, it's like, and then I kind of grew up and kind of grew out of that. Maybe, you know, it's such a heavy testosterone phase or something, kind of grew out of that, you know. But those first 2 albums, like Counterfeit, I remember when it first came out, I was just like, wow, this is a really badass song, you know. And most of the friends I was hanging out with were like, that's cheesy, you know.
It's crazy that they don't play songs off that album live, really, for the most part, because I think that first album was incredible and still stands up.
Yeah, and that's it is weird that it's like, you know, did you check out the new album? The new,
yeah, I like it. I like it a lot, actually.
I heard a few good songs on there. That's the thing. It's like I didn't really dive deep into it, but you know, I listened to it and I thought it was pretty good.
It's a good album. There's an NXS cover on there, which is pretty cool. And they definitely have reinvented themselves. They're not doing the exact same thing, but it's still Limp Bizkit. It's still, it still has what you kind of want when you hear an album with Fred Durst. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not expecting anything that's, I don't know, like incredibly deep. It's not what you go to Limp Bizkit for.
Yeah. Yo, let's go.
And I got to see them at Mohegan Sun recently. I saw them in Connecticut, and I had a great time. I crowd surfed for the first time in years, and I was just feeling it. There's video of it. I had an awesome time. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, Limp Bizkit. You know, my big draw to them is Wes Borland is a badass guitar player. He does some really unique stuff, and he's always wearing the weird stuff. It's like you're like, whoa, who is this dude? Where's he from? Mars? You know, what the hell?
Did you ever get to link up with him? Because I know both of you guys were living in LA and you had that same connection.
I ran into him at NAMM one time with can't remember who I was with. Maybe I was with Moke, one of our drummers from Against All Will, and he goes back with the Korn guys and the Limp Bizkit guys. And he seemed like a real soft spoken kind of dude. He wasn't like, you know, just kind of a mellow dude. I think it was at NAMM, and there's guitars going off everywhere and stuff like that. So it was one of those deals where it's like trying to talk, but everybody's playing, you know, instruments around you, and you're kind of like, okay, nice to meet you or whatever.
Yeah, I've always thought about what it would be like at NAMM too, because you have all these guys who are like hardcore shredders who really just can play their ass off, like the Yngwie Malmsteen and all those guys.
Yeah, I saw him at NAMM too. Yeah, he was ripping at the Marshall booth, man. It was it was in front of maybe 50 people or whatever, but he was shredding, and I just walked right up there. I think he gave me a pick and everything, but he was shredding. I was just like, man, I've really never paid attention to his music, but man, he was ripping on that thing, you know, on the Fender Strat through the Marshall. He was ripping it. It was crazy.
Are you into the shredders? Because I know for you, like with what you write, that's not necessarily your playing style.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I grew up with the Zakk Wyldes, the Randy Rhoads, the George Lynches, you know, totally. I mean, you know, it's like, I forgot most of what, you know, the shredding that I used to do, or, you know, it's like, just because I get into songs more, but it's like every once in a while I'll be like, oh yeah, that's Randy Rhoads or Eddie Van Halen or whatever. And then I can play a little bit of it, but there's, you know, a lot of that stuff, you know, it's like, I that's what I grew up loving, you know, just that whole kind of shreddy thing, you know. I never was really a big Steve Vai, Joe Satriani guy, but I know that they rip, you know, but I was always more into the guys, you know. It's like, even like a guy like Mick Mars from Motley Crue. You know, he got some pretty Dr. Feelgood, and you know, he had some pretty shredding licks on that thing. I remember just being like, whoa, Mick.
Yeah, I like it, and I love that stuff, and it went away for a while, and I think it's coming back a little bit, but during the 90s, for sure, that completely went away, and then especially, you might even remember, did you see, I imagine you did, because you're into the same stuff as me, but Some Kind of Monster, the Metallica documentary?
Oh, yeah.
And I remember on Saint Anger, there was not one guitar solo, and it sucks that Kirk Hammett, because he spoke up a little bit about it, but it seems like those guys always overpowered him. And they said, oh, guitar solos, like that's a thing of the past. You know, we don't want to keep like reliving that thing. And I agreed with what Kirk Hammett said in that documentary. He's like, if we don't have one guitar solo on this album, then we're doing what's like of the time right now. He's like,
Yeah.
that's not being unique at all to not have it, where it's the album is going to sound like of this time. He said, why not just have guitar solos that are kind of different than what I did on the Black album or what I did in previous albums? But then when you picked up the album, you have one of the greatest guitarists out there and not one guitar solo.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's like you that documentary I've watched so many times because it's like watching a band just fall apart. But it's like I can't even really remember. I have Saint Anger, I have that album, but I can't really remember any of the songs off of it. I remember, Saint Anger, I remember that song, but it's like everything else off of it, I don't really remember any of it.
Believe it or not, it's kind of grown on me. It's the type of album you have to really listen to, though, in like a pissed off mood. It's this type of thing I could listen to at the gym if I'm lifting weights and like going for a max or something, but it doesn't have the songwriting of classic Metallica for sure. And it was following trends at the time. There's stuff on there where you go, especially people always talk about the Saint Anger snare, the way the snare sounded that Lars used, and I think it was trying to sound like Slipknot, who had those drum sounds going on. With the two other drummers beating the kegs or whatever you'd want to call them. I do think it was very of the time of like, all right, we got to sound more like bands like Slipknot and Korn, that aggressive nature, and it does sound of that time period more than what you would expect from Metallica.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think they even used that same engineer, didn't they, from that Slipknot? Can't think of his name right now, but yeah, I think they used that same engineer, not Ross Robinson, but the engineer actually that did that Saint Anger, Greg Feldman or somebody like that. But yeah,
I'm gonna look right now.
Okay, yeah, look it up.
Yeah, I know Bob Rock produced it. Let's see, it was I just see producer Bob Rock, and I
maybe
see
Bob did it.
But if I go down, it says assistant engineering Mike Gillies. Is that
that's not it? No, I was wrong.
And then it says Eric Helmkamp, assistant engineering, Vlado Meller, mastering.
No, I was wrong. They're great. I think the Greg guy might have came in later with Death Magnetic or whatever.
Also, I mean, Bob Rock, he did a bunch of tremendous albums, late 80s and 90s. And then I think he fell off for a little bit. I actually like some of the new stuff he did with Motley Crue for the Dirt soundtrack. But I think he had like a huge run there. And during the 2000s, he didn't produce anything that was, at least for me, that memorable.
Yeah, with Bob Rock, he's got that sound. It's got that, and yeah, he probably doesn't have to ever work a day in his life again. Doing that. But I ran into him one time in LA. There used to be this boutique guitar pedal company, that was like right off Sunset by the Guitar Center. And he was in there buying pedals, and I was like, hey man, what are you looking at? And he's like, I'm buying a bunch of these old pedals and stuff. He's like, I got a studio in Hawaii, and I need some gear there or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then like me and my buddy Troy were walking out, and he was like in this S10, like an old S10 like truck, dude. And we were like, what the hell? Well, and this was, it had to have been right after Saint Anger or whatever. And he's like just driving casually around in a little beat up S10 truck. And I was like, that's crazy, man. Was
this LA or Kansas City?
LA. Yeah, it was in LA. It was right by, it's not there anymore. And it wasn't there when I moved there. But it was, I want to say it was Voltage Guitars, and it was the name of it. But they had all the old pedals, all the electro harmonics and old tube screamers and all the old crazy pedals that were like, $2,000 for a what used to be a $50 pedal back in the day,
Wow. And Troy, you mentioned Troy was in Puddle of Mud for a little bit, right?
Yeah. Troy was in Puddle of Mud for a while. And then we did the Cooker thing together, and he's got his own thing, which is called Twist Face. But yeah, he was he just recently went to one of the Puddle of Mud shows in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and he went there, and I go, well, did you go up and say hi to Wes or whatever? And he's like, I didn't even bother, so I was like, well, okay. He said everything sounded good.
What do you think is the reason for that? Is it if you're able to reveal, do you think it's drug issues, or do you think they have issues or anything like? And if you can't talk about it, I get that too.
No, you mean like Wes, and I think yeah, you're talking that way or whatever.
Well, I just mean why Troy wouldn't want to see him if he's a former member of the band, you know, and he's at the show. I'd figure like if you're going, you might as well say, hey, I'm here to support, even though I'm not here in the band anymore.
Well, you know, I tried to get everybody, like some of the Fort Scott guys, I tried to get them passes or whatever. So I put a call out, and, you know, it was basically like, we can get you one pass. So it was kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know.
What do you think is up with that? Because clearly they probably could do more, but I mean, at the same time, it's not like it's expensive to see a Puddle of Mud show. At the same time, they're playing smaller clubs, but they're packing them out.
Yeah, I think the tickets were like $30 or something like that. But I think the main reason was that it was a casino show, and I think it was sold out. So he was probably like, you know, we can get you one pass or two passes or something. Because I tried to pull some strings to, you know, just kind of get a couple passes, but, you know, it's like, you know, it's weird now. I don't know who's hip to the backstage stuff, or, you know, passes or meet and greets or anything like that, because all the other stuff that's going on or whatever. I know a lot of bands are like, hey, we're not going to have any backstage, or we're not going to do meet and greets. But I think this one was
COVID stuff.
Yeah. I think this one was just purely probably that it was sold out, I guess, or whatever. But, you know, Troy paid for his ticket and he bought merch and everything. He's like, hey man, I'm going to support him. You know, it's like, cool.
So then why not run up and say what's going on? That's a little strange to me, for sure.
Yeah, it's not in Troy's nature to be like a celebrity stalker. He's kind of more like, yeah, man, I just wanted to go and watch the show and have a good time, you know.
Is it stalking? Is it stalking if you were in the band? You know,
yeah,
what I mean?
Totally. I know.
Yeah, that's kind of odd to me, but I guess, yeah, they don't have that same relationship. And also, like, the band at this point is all no one in the band currently was there during the heyday except for Wes.
Yeah, nobody. And and you know, I mean, yeah, it's one of those hired gun things where you're kind of like, you know, I mean, you know,
which works for some bands and doesn't work for others.
Yeah, and they're doing, and from what I've heard, dude, they're doing a great job or whatever. But it's just like, you know, the you know, the day in day out kind of thing of just like playing every weekend. You know, it's just kind of like, you know, it's like it would kind of, for me, it's kind of life sucking. You know, I mean, you know, if you're on a tour where you know you're going to go out for a month and you're going to be on the road for a month, yeah, it's great. But touring for a year every weekend, you know, it's just like, you got to find some dudes that are really into it, really, because, dude, I mean, you're taking so much time away from your family, your friends, your pets. It's not like you're doing a month or two and, you know, every day, you know. It's kind of like, well, you're a weekend warrior, you're making money and you're out there playing shows, which is cool. Keep it going, you know. I mean, I'm all for it. I'm, you know, I'll champion it all the way, you know. But it's one of those things where it's like, it's got to be tough, dude, because you're missing out on so much in life, just, you know, doing the every weekend here and there. You come back for a week and then you can't even really, you know how when you get home from something, you're home for a week and you're like, can't even really get your bearings set straight. Sure. And then you're going back out for 3 more days to, you know, play whatever festival, wherever, you know. Yeah. As I get older, I'm kind of more just like, yeah, you know, the touring thing. Once you've played 100 shows, I think after you've played 100 shows, you're kind of like, yeah, I could take it or leave it. But some people really live for it. And, you know, I think Wes is one of those dudes that he lives for playing in front of the fans. And I'm, like I said, I'm a champion for that. Go for it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, also, it shouldn't be lost, of course, just the income that comes from it. And there's bands who have been doing that lifestyle way longer. Who comes to mind for me is, as I said before, you did the outro. The outro was done by Mark Slaughter, who I got to know really well. And Slaughter has been doing weekend shows mainly at casinos since about 1991 in their heyday to when they were playing arenas at that time, and then to what they're doing now. And quite honestly, it's a similar set list every time you'll see them. And I mean, there is a lot of money involved. The fact is, Slaughter has not put out a new album since, if I remember correctly, 1998. I don't think they intend to put out another album, but they know that every week in a different city, they can get fans who want to see Mad About You and Up All Night and Fly to the Angels. And yeah, they could draw a crowd, and it's what supports their life.
Yeah, and doesn't Dana Strum play in Vince Neil's solo
Yeah,
band?
he plays in Vince Neil's band as well. And I think when Mark is not on the road and they're doing that, Mark is doing voice acting and does like various other projects. He did put out 2 solo albums, one of which I had some hand in, I guess you would say, in that Never Given Up. I hooked him up with the Red Circle Foundation since he wanted to do that song for charity.
Cool.
So yeah, I feel like when I listened to that, I'm like, all right, I was kind of there for some of this, which was cool. But yeah, he does a little bit of stuff outside of that. But yeah, I know the lion's share of what those guys make is just every week plugging along, playing casinos, and yeah, that's been their lifestyle, as I said, for 30 years, the on the road lifestyle.
Yeah, and then for them to keep it doing it too, it's like, I mean, Mark's voice still sounds great, and it's usually that's what really kind of bottoms out bands, is when the singer kind of can't really pull it off anymore. And it's one of those things where Mark still sounds great. I mean, you see a lot of those bands that are kind of like, it's like,
well, it depends on what level you're on too when you say it bottoms out, because look at Bon Jovi. I'm sure you've seen the recent videos of John Bon Jovi. Yeah, he's having definitely vocal issues, but they're still playing stadiums every night. And I think even if they're playing 5 years from now, they're going to be playing stadiums no matter what he sounds like. Or in the case of Kiss, who is using backing track where it's all on YouTube, that we could see they're clearly lip singing, and there are people who don't really care. They're still going to come out and see them when they come to their city.
Yeah, even some people go just to see that stuff too. I mean, some people. Yeah, some people like the train wreck. They're like, that's where I'm going. That's the thing with Wes. When we first met, when you and I first talked, and that's what was going on with that, was that whole train wreck, and people were still showing up to see him fall apart at the seams. I mean, he was sitting on a bench, sitting there singing songs, sitting on a bar stool, and you could just tell he was wasted. And it was like, man, people are showing up to see this stuff. And, the band would walk off stage and leave him and stuff. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. It was like, man, if I was in the band, I would be like, dude, come on, let's go. Let's get out of here, man. Let's take a few months off and kind of chill. And it's like, he kind of just kept going and going. It was just getting worse and worse. And then that's when you reached out to me and you were kind of like, hey man, I'm a big fan. What's going on? And I'm like,
I wanted to do originally a documentary, and then this guy Ricky Bones, who I worked with, who worked at Gas Digital, because I don't have all the equipment or the skills to do a film documentary. So let's do like an audio documentary for Gas Digital. And I haven't really seen that guy since, but I got your interview, and I wanted to do it in a respectful way, because I didn't want it to be like, oh, look at this train wreck and exploitive of the whole thing. I wanted to see like a great comeback story. And I think on some level we've seen that though, because the 2 times I've seen Puddle of Mud post first speaking with you, they were great, man. And they were not having those issues. And even the nights maybe where it's an off night now, it's not to what you were seeing, because it looked for a while like Wes Scantlin was going to be the next dead rock star. I mean, he was on stage and he was collapsing while singing. It was, if you look up those shows, it was horrendous to see.
It was hard for me to watch. It was I reached out a bunch of times and talked to him or whatever, and reached out through various friends, and I was just like, hey man, if he he needs help or he needs somebody, and you didn't, a few times I got a response, a few times I didn't. I was just like, that kind of was like, hey man, I don't want to see you end up dead or anything. But it was very troubling to see like everything on YouTube that it's like you're like watching him fall apart, like on TV basically. You're just like, wow, what's going on with this whole thing? Why hasn't somebody just and I don't know if it was management or just bad, you know, what was going on, but it was like it just continued and continued. And it was just like, you know, friends of ours, you know, that grew up with us were calling me going, man, you really need to reach out to him. And I'm like, well, I have, dude. He's not returning my calls. You know, it's like, you know, like people were like actually for a minute there were like, you know, kind of making me feel guilty because it was just like, you know, man, we need to do something. Do we need to fly out to a show and save him? And I'm like, dude, you know, if he wants to keep doing drugs and partying and whatever he's doing, we're not going to be able to stop him. He'll just run away from us. You know, we can show up to how many shows we want and try to do something, but you know, he'll just get away from us and go do drugs, you know? And that was the thing with me back in the band when I got back in the band, and that's probably why I'm not in the band, was because I was kind of calling out a lot of those things that I was seeing, you know. It's like, and I hate to say that, you know, I'm not anybody that's, you know, he's made a bounce back and I'm proud of him for that. But what I was seeing was not what the guy I knew, you know. I was seeing stuff that I was just kind of like, bro, this isn't, I really thought he was going to end up dead then. And that was in 05, you know? So, you know, he's bounced back, but he really went downhill with a lot of that stuff. You know, I mean, you can only do that stuff for so long while you're in your 20s. And, you know, as soon as you hit your 30s and 40s, man, you know, cocaine and all that stuff is not something that, you know, you should be messing around with. And, you know, that's what I tried to be there as a friend. And that's when, you know, I got a call from my manager is like, they don't want to work with you anymore.
What was he doing hard drugs in front of you? I mean, because I know at the time you were doing some stuff as well, right? But not on the level he was.
Yeah, I partied, man. You know, it's like shit. I did a line of blow off Pam Anderson's fingernail one time.
Wait, what? You got to tell us this story.
Yeah. So I was hanging out with Wes, and we went to Pam Anderson's roast, her comedy roast or whatever, because we met her the night before. Her and Courtney were at the Sunset Marquee where I had a room, and they came up to my room and hung out and partied with me and Wes, and me and Wes sang them songs and everything like that. So they gave us passes for the next night, which was the comedy, Pam's comedy roast or whatever. Anyway, it was like, you know, they were all hanging out and partying, and I'm not really a cocaine dude. So I'm just going to put that out there. You know, I've done it, but, you know, it's not my drug of choice or whatever. But Pam Anderson had some on her pinky nail, and she was like, hey, Puddle of Mud guy, you want to do a line? And I was like, sure, I'll do one.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a big revelation there, because I mean, I guess that means that at least the time, but Pamela Anderson was doing some very hard stuff for herself.
Yeah. And hanging out with Courtney Love, she was hanging out with Courtney, and like, you know, it was funny was me and Wes did a version with Courtney singing of She Fucking Hates Me, and it was He Fucking Hates Me, and Courtney sang it. So we played it acoustically in my room, and she was singing along. She was like, I know where you guys got that song or whatever. It sounds like this, you know. But she was all blown out at the time too, which was as you can tell on that weenie roast, or not the weenie roast, the comedy roast, Pam's comedy roast. Courtney was, yeah, she was probably partying pretty hard too, you know.
I remember those roasts, man. What about the roast of Donald Trump, where this was 2 years or so prior to 2016, and he was like, and I'm going to be the next president. Yeah. And it was all one big joke. People were like, all right, you know, it's never going to happen. And sure enough, I mean, he proved them wrong.
The Donald, yeah, man. I mean, geez, you know, talk about a guy that's got a lot of flack for trying to, now we're all starting to come around to where it's like, I guess mean tweets really weren't that bad. Cheap gas, mean tweets.
Yeah, I mean, there's other stuff I've certainly criticized on the show. Some of the pardons, like, you know, Rod Blagojevich, not someone I would certainly pardon. There's other stuff I can get into, even like the Eddie Gallagher stuff. But yeah, I think overall, like, the mood of the country is just, yeah, it was. I mean, undeniably, the 4 years we had under Trump, things in terms of inflation or gas prices or all of that, there's really no comparison.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing I'm starting to notice too is just that it's like a a big thing for me with him was that there was no wars. He kind of kept everything, to where we weren't all, we weren't going to war. And now I see this thing with the whole Ukraine thing and the money that we're sending over there, that we can't even take care of our homeless or our vets here in America, and we're sending billions of dollars somewhere else. That's the one thing that I saw in Trump that I was kind of like, yeah, he's kind of kept us out of these global conflicts. And you might know more than I do or whatever. Maybe there was some global conflicts that I didn't see, but that's what I kind of noticed.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely do. And I do think that's why, like, the more neocon wing of the party, the Liz Cheneys, and they don't like him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, I think at least one of those I could say was the drawdown in Afghanistan, which was disastrous. But I think it would have been a problem no matter who would have been in office. I just don't know if it would have been as bad, because I think if Trump got another term, we'd be getting guys out of Afghanistan. Would it be done as hastily? Probably not, because it couldn't have been done worse than it was.
Yeah, that's what Tonto was saying, is that the whole thing was just a mess. And it sounds like a mess. It's like, I'm not really military, so I don't know, but
yeah, neither of us are. So
yeah, and so talking to Tonto about it, he was just kind of saying, hey, it's like we got to be smarter than our enemies, and our enemies are pretty smart.
Of course. I got to ask you about that, actually, come to think of it, is that, so I met Chris prior to really people knowing who Chris was. He put out the 13 Hours book. I was working at Andrew Wilkow. I was definitely interested in the attacks on Benghazi and had watched everything like everybody else. But this was right when the book was being released. He was out there doing press. I had never heard the name Chris Tonto Peranto before meeting him. And I was just like, man, this is a super genuine guy, and things have just kind of evolved into where it is now. I saw his like rise to fame, and I guess what he would call his fall, where he wasn't away from his family and all that. But even all the stuff that he says that, I was an angry person, all that, I never saw that, man. There was never a time I hung out with Chris and he wasn't like a super genuine guy. Obviously, there was stuff going on behind the scenes that he's not proud of, that he's fixed, and that he's been completely honest about in his books, and he's spoken about it. And he's a great place in his life right now. I mean, you saw as much as I did him with his kids on the trampoline, and his youngest son, not the his youngest son right in the golf cart. Yeah. I mean, that was awesome to see, just them having a blast. But for you, it was a little different meeting Chris, because you had read the book before, you had watched 13 Hours. So to you, it's almost like, that rock star meeting, that celebrity who you looked up to or something, even though for him, there's a reason to respect him. He's not just someone who put out a great album, or someone who was a great sports figure or something. Like, there's a reason that you looked up to him as a hero of this country. So yeah, what was your experience? Because I met you the day prior, and then you came out to Fort Scott, and that was your first time meeting Chris. And I'm just thinking of like that saying of like, never meet your heroes type of thing. And I get the feeling like it was not that type of experience.
Yeah, no, it's like Chris and I are a lot alike. It's like we're kind of kindred souls. And also it's like one of those things where it's like, you've seen it, where he'll give people like a lot of his time to kind of make them feel like they're important, or he wants to listen to what they're saying and stuff like that. I'm kind of that way too, where you kind of want to make people feel good, and he kind of has that vibe to him. So it was cool to hang out with him and have him give me some instruction on shooting and stuff like that, to where give me some tips. I learned a lot that day just by watching certain things, and Chris to me is one of those, he's a patriot, man. He's one of those dudes that it's like, if the shit hits the fan, you want that guy on your side. You want that type of dude, all those types of dudes there. It's like, we've become a country of people that, are kind of desensitized and kind of really, kind of pussies, and we need those kind of people that, what I'm saying? We need more masculine men that are macho, that are going to be like, hey, I'm not going to take this shit,
Yeah, no, and Chris is just like a super genuine guy, as I've said before. So it was cool, and I think he respects you a lot too. And I think, as he said before on the show, your music was there for him during those times in his life, and when those guys are out there, they're listening to bands like yours. It's what gets them through those deployments.
Yeah, I mean, and that to me is the ultimate compliment. That's kind of like we talked on the first podcast. That's kind of, for me, when people say that kind of stuff, it could be somebody coming up to me being like, my brother wanted to hear your music as he passed away from cancer or something. It touches me.
Yeah, for sure. I think the songs get us through some of the hardest times in life and bring us back to certain moments. And yeah, when I put on something that I was listening to in 12th grade, or that I was listening to first year of college, it brings me back to those times. It's the soundtrack to our lives.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the music really has that big of impact to a lot of people. And it's like, sometimes as a musician, I think we all as musicians, sometimes we can forget that, but then it kind of kicks in and we're kind of like, whoa, what a blessing.
Well, I would imagine that if you go into the studio and your intent is like, I'm going to write a timeless song that's going to be remembered 30 years from now, you probably would never be able to do it. It has to be, I would guess, because I've never done it, but I would guess it has to be just spontaneous.
Yeah, Ian, man, it's like one of those things where, like, sometimes I'll be like, I'll think about it for a week and I'll be like, I'm gonna write a badass song. It's gonna be like Crazy Train meets Hotel California, man. It's gonna be the best song ever. You get in there, it's like you're like, oh wow, was I really thinking I was gonna do something like that? But yeah, it really is. It's a spontaneous thing and it's usually, what I've noticed too is, like, it's kind of a spontaneous thing between two people, usually somebody that's a singer and somebody that's a guitar player, or somebody that kind of has, could be a piano or whatever, but like the Elton Bernie kind of thing or whatever. But
or I think of Oasis, the Gallagher brothers.
Yeah, totally. Like, it's one of those things where you're kind of like trying to maybe outdo each other a little bit, or kind of like, I don't know what kind of how to phrase it, but something where you're trying to one up somebody, like, hey, no, we can make this a little bit better if I add this here. Yeah, well, if you add that there, I'm gonna add this here. It's like,
and you know what? Did you see the documentary on Oasis?
Of course, me.
Okay. I was gonna say, I feel like learning more about them. They had this winning formula, and they probably would have had another 2 or 3 timeless albums, but they fucked it up out of jealousy of each other. It was like, you had the one guy who was the great songwriter, and the one guy who, even though Noel has a great voice, Liam was the voice. I know that Noel had hits that he sang on, but Liam was what people wanted to hear. And I think one guy was jealous of the other's songwriting. One guy was jealous of the other's voice. I could write a song as good as you. I could sing as good as you. And then they put out albums where they fucked up the formula they had. They had this like winning, amazing formula.
Yeah, and then they kind of fired all the band members too. They kind of got rid of all those guys too. And it was like, even the guys that are in the band that maybe come in later that didn't write on stuff, they had their own little thing too. It's like, I've talked to drummers where they're like, yeah, I played on this or I played on that, but I don't get any publishing because I'm a drummer or whatever. And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, you do add your own part, but if the song's already written, the melody and the vocal line, then you really can't claim any publishing. That's why it's like, usually, bands kind of splinter off from each other, is because if they become successful, 2 guys or 1 guy's making all the money, the other guys are all resenting, and it's kind of like, but yeah, it's even the guys that were in Oasis, I can't remember their name, but the drummer had his own unique style. That other guitar player had his own unique style. And it was that's what kind of drove the band, that for a while, for those 2 albums, like you said, it's crazy seeing this stuff in documentaries where you're probably like me, where you're like, get your shit together, man. Kind of, where you get that way, you're like, man, this is unbelievable. Can't somebody pull them to the side and be like, hey, bro, you could really do it this way and do it this way and still remain successful.
Well, I feel like you lived it. You
Yeah.
lived it, man, because Puddle of Mud had one major album. They had other hits after that, but it's like, dude, if they had the formula of the original guys, and it sucks to say, but it might be too late now. But if they would have had those same guys 2-3 years ago, after Come Clean, they probably could have been a band who had 2-3 classic albums.
Yeah, and I really think that that's what they were. I think that a lot of that stuff we could have worked out. He's like, I remember like before I rejoined the band in 04, 05, that whole thing. There was talks of us getting with the old band like Paul Phillips and
who's in Third Eye Blind. I mean, not Third Eye Blind. Who's in Three Doors Down now, right?
Yeah, that's Greg Upchurch. There was talks of me coming in and just writing with those guys, and Paul Phillips, he rejected the idea. Greg was
Three Doors Down.
No, he was Greg was Paul Phillips was the guitar player that Fred brought in to replace me when they signed the deal with him. And Greg's the one that's in. Greg Upchurch is in Three Doors Down right now. I think he's been in there for the past maybe 19 years, maybe. But yeah, Paul Phillips rejected the idea. Doug Ardito, the bass player at the time, was like, yeah, that's what I think we should do. We should have Jimmy come in and, try to do some writing with him or whatever. And so they flew me out to LA. Wes picked me up at the airport and went over to Doug's, and we made a phone call to Paul Phillips, and Paul Phillips didn't want to write with me. He's like, why do we need that guy? And Paul was on speakerphone with Doug, and Doug was like, dude, he's the guy that helped write all these hits on this album. We kind of need to work with him. And Paul Phillips is like, I have no interest in it. And then that's when he quit, and they put me in the band,
Has Paul Phillips done anything notable since? I just wonder, because with Greg, like being in Three Doors Down, man, that's another like lotto ticket band.
Yeah, I think, Paul, I think played it with a band called Operator. Do you remember that? Operator? They were on Sirius. Kind of sounded like Chris Cornell singing. It was an okay song. But I don't think he's done anything since. I'm not really sure. But, every time I kind of met the guy, he seemed like he didn't like me because I was there. So because I had a part in writing those songs, and like for a lot of my friends and a lot of people that were in the Puddle camp were like, I don't know why Paul doesn't like you. It's like, you wrote the hits that he's playing on stage. I just couldn't ever understand. I was always nice to him. I was like, hey man, that show, at a show, your amp sounded killer tonight. That guitar sounds killer, And he would be like, oh, that's the worst show I've ever played. I was just kind of trying to compliment him, and he was like, he just didn't seem like he liked me, and it was kind of weird.
It's kind of strange how I guess just egos clash like that. Is odd to me, because I always think like great artists, they like working with it. Look at all the hits that Kiss had and all the writers that were brought in.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I never understood it, but it's like, one of those things where I was always open to suggestions that, if anybody wanted to work on something, I was always open. And Wes was like, hey man, I want to fly you out. And, and just hearing it it was kind of heartbreaking hearing it through Doug's phone that he was like, I don't want to work with that guy. And I'm like, dude, I just given you hits to tour on, and it's like, you guys are successful because of my songs, partly because of my songs. I can't claim all of it, but
sure, of course.
But going back to Kiss, though, I got a great Kiss story. Did I tell you the Kiss story? Have I told you the Kiss story?
No,
yet?
I don't think so. Because me and your girlfriend and you, like, we were talking Kiss because we're like nerds for Kiss, but I don't remember.
Well, maybe this will make blabbermouth. No,
yeah, let's do it. And the Courtney Love thing might.
Oh yeah, but we were practicing at Mates with Against All Will, and we were paid, the Mates rehearsal place is in North Hollywood, right? So we pull up and we're unpacking all our gear and stuff at the rehearsal spot. And when we pull up, my buddy Big Dave, he's like honking at this guy that's in a car in front of him. And I'm like, dude, you're honking at Gene Simmons, dude. They're practicing here too. And he's like, no way. Then he's like, oh my God, that is Gene Simmons. He's like, oh dude, go tell him I'm sorry, so like they're in the room, we're practicing, and I'm listening to them next door. They're in the room right next to us at Mates. And
I'm just curious, what were they recording at the time? Like what era was this?
This would have been 2010. And it said 2010, 2011, maybe. They were writing new songs. So Bruce Kulick was in there, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Eric Singer, another writer, and I want to say a producer. I can't remember the guy. I think it was one of the it was one of the producers in there, but there was like, I'm saying a group of people in there.
Sure.
And they played the same riff for an hour, to where I was about ready to go over there and just go, hey guys, do you need help with writing a song? Because they kept just playing da-na-na-na, 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 and then they'd stop, talk about it for a while, talk about it. I could hear them talking, and then da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, started back up again. And I'm just like, dude, this is Kiss. They're practicing in the same practice spaces against all will. Why don't they have their own like stadium somewhere that they can write songs in? Or I was just, it blew my mind that I was just wanting to go over there and go, how about you guys go dun 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 dun, you know, it's just like, I was like, Kiss is next door, failing miserably. And I was like, man, I should go over there and offer up my services, you know.
It would be cool, man. Did you get to have any other interaction with them, or you just kind of kept your distance?
Yeah, you know, I kind of just kept to myself. But the funny thing is the next night, one of the guys that was the guy that was honking at Gene Simmons, Big Dave, we were at the Sunset Music Festival and Motley Crue was playing, and a limo pulls up, and I'm like standing by the urinals or whatever, like the porta potties, you know, and all of a sudden I see Gene Simmons get out of this limo, and I'm like, whoa, there's Gene Simmons. We just saw him yesterday or whatever. That's crazy. But then out of the midst, I see Big Dave, and he's under Gene Simmons's arm, handing off our Against All Will CD to him. I'm like, where's Big Dave? He's hanging out with Gene Simmons now. You know, yeah. He gave him a CD, and Gene Simmons was like, this artwork's really good on this CD.
And it's also probably, how many CDs does Gene Simmons get handed that he probably just throws in the trash, to be honest.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, that's what I said. I said, Dave, he probably just threw that in the trash. But hey, you know, I mean, he took a shot. Dave took a shot, but it was weird because I was kind of standing on the hills on the porta potties, and I kind of just looked over and saw the limo. And I saw Gene Simmons's hair, and then I saw Big Dave right next to him under his arm. Like Gene Simmons had him. This was way before COVID and all that stuff, but had him under his arm, like, hey, how you doing, big guy? You know?
That's awesome, man. So, you know what I was going to ask you? I mean, we were talking about production before, and when we were talking about Bob Rock, which I could totally see you doing. I could see you producing something for a newer band. I don't know what the outlet would be nowadays because of the fact that just music has changed so much, and there's really at least of the genre that you're known for, Against All Will, Puddle of Mud, there are no like big bands coming out of that genre at the moment. But I just have to wonder, what are you going to do next? Because you have an awesome studio at your house, which actually, if you turn around the phone, people probably can see everything on the wall there. Where are the guitars? Oh, you'd have to go downstairs, right, for the guitars and all that. Yeah. But I mean, you still have a great like space with all this stuff. Do you plan on putting out any new material, maybe producing another artist, writing for new artists? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about doing, is just, you know, kind of maybe producing, doing a little writing and stuff for up and coming bands, and kind of maybe, you know, as I get older, kind of, you know, maybe, you know, doing the management thing, kind of helping bands along. You know, I know you and I have talked about that, you know, where we you know, kind of scout out some bands that are up and coming or doing pretty good. You always need kind of a second set of ears on stuff, you know? So it's always good to have somebody like that's why it's like I can, with my career in music, I can kind of, you know, my manager, Sam Kaiser, has been there, has really led me in a lot of in the right directions and kind of been there for me. Whereas like if I was kind of just out on my own, I would have taken the first kind of publishing deal or whatever I was offered. But having somebody that, kind of is there, to keep an eye out for you. That's what I'd like to be. I'd like to be kind of a mentor for that kind of thing.
Is there much of a rock scene in Kansas City? Are there bands that you go out and see who are younger, who you feel could be doing something big?
Yeah, and yeah, there's a few bands here that I've noticed that are kind of that are kind of need the extra. It's kind of these times the bands need some sort of extra kick to kind of kick them up into a spot. Whereas us coming up back in the day, we didn't really have that. Where it was kind of like, but my buddy Gene here, he has a killer studio, B24 Studios downtown. And he has a band called Search and Seizure, which you should check out. They're a really good band. And there's a lot of talent here. I think that it's more about we're at a weird timeline right now with everything. I think that after we kind of go over this timeline and into another, that I think there's going to be some new artists that are going to come up, especially around here. I think it's just, it's got to take some time, to where everybody has kind of get over the last couple of years. I think I just feel that. I don't know if I'm right or,
Yeah, I think you're right about the timeline thing, because the thing that sticks out to me is we had 2 years of this whole COVID situation and not being able to go to shows. And then currently what we have now is the economy situation. So I'm only planning on going to one other show in the coming months. I'm going to go see Third Eye Blind actually on Sunday,
Cool.
so the day before this comes out, with some friends. But I got those tickets a while back, but I realized like when I go on StubHub and I go on Ticketmaster, most shows other than the shows like the stadium tour with Motley Crue and Def Leppard, where people were holding on to tickets for 2 years, tickets are not really moving. When I look at shows at Jones Beach, like by where my parents are on Long Island, and I go to shows there, I just look at that chart of all the seats that are available, and they're having to lower prices every few weeks, and people are buying tickets last minute. That's the smart way of going about it. But yeah, I just think with the economy right now for the bigger shows, people are not looking to spend $50, $100, $200 to go to a show right now. That people are in, the price of gas, the price of everything. People are holding on to their money, including myself. I planned on going to the stadium tour and maybe one of those Aerosmith shows in Massachusetts or Maine. And for me right now, yeah, I don't have the money to do so.
Yeah, that's kind of a rough situation. I was thinking about going to the stadium tour too. That I was just kind of like, they're going to be here, I think in a couple days. And dude, it's like in the hundreds here. It's like,
yeah,
dude,
same with me. Yeah.
It's like, it's like, yeah, it's like, I've seen them in their heyday. You're a big
Exactly.
Motley Crue fan. It's like, so I've seen him, I think I saw the Dr. Feelgood tour like 4 times,
Oh my God. So, but yeah, for me, I mean, I didn't see them in their heyday, but I did get to see them in the mid 2000s, and I did get to see them before this. And it's like, yeah, I'll go see Motley Crue for $40 or something, which is probably what I was paying then. And if I go to see Motley Crue, I want to be on the field. They're playing stadiums. And yeah, I'm not looking to shell out like $200, $300 for that. I'm going to Third Eye Blind. I'm like way up there. And I think a lot of people are just in that same position right now where money, disposable income is just not the priority right now. I could say for me, like, and I'm sure so many people in our audience and maybe even you, I saw all these people doing well with crypto and stocks. And it was like, I got to get in on this. And then from basically when Thanksgiving happened, this past Thanksgiving to now, everything is shot down. So it's like the money that I invested, which is nothing crazy, I have lost thousands of dollars. And I factor that into like my entire net worth at the moment. And it's like, yeah, until this revives, I'm looking to just save what I have.
Yeah, that's the kind of way I am too. It's kind of, there's been a few guitars, the vintage guitars that I've been eyeing or whatever. And I'm just kind of like, that market really hasn't dipped. Vintage guitars are on the up. So, because there's not that many of them out there. but I was kind of eyeing a few, and I was kind of like, no, like right now I just can't do it.
Did you see how much Kurt Cobain's guitar went for?
What was it, 3 million? That one?
Yeah, was that what I'm? If I Google it, was that how much it was?
The acoustic one from Unplugged?
I think so. Was that 3 million? That's how much it went for?
I want to say it was. I want to say it was 3 million.
Insane. It says nearly 5 million. It says,
yeah, see, there you go. Yeah, I was wrong, but yeah.
Dude, like, I mean, as you as a collector, knowing maybe resale value, is that not in terms of something you would buy, of course, but like, is it worth it? Is it going to retain $5 million?
Since it's from Unplugged, it might, because some billionaire collector might buy it. But yeah, like for me, yeah, I mean, dude, it's just like I looked at a guitar one time that was a 59 Les Paul, and I think they wanted 200, they wanted $250,000 for it. And I was like, I could, okay, take out a loan.
I think I'll buy a house.
Yeah, maybe I'll buy a house. Yeah, that was kind of the thing. But then now, if I look at that same Les Paul, they're reaching $500,000, on some of those. Wow. Yeah, so
you're wishing you would have bought it?
Well, no, not really. I'd rather
just to sell.
Yeah, and I have done that where I bought stuff just to sell, and then you kind of, after you sell, you kind of kick yourself. It's kind of a weird thing with guitar players. Kind of like, man, why did I do that? Why I bought that thing? I sat on it. I made a little bit of profit, but I sure did love it. Why did I get rid of it for just profit? But sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Oh yeah, of course. I just couldn't imagine shelling out $5 million for a guitar. Like the amount of great investments you could make with that. But then again, you could have probably put that money in the stock market in late 2021, and you would have lost half of it as well. So maybe the guitar is a better. As silly as it sounds, the $5 million Kurt Cobain guitar may be a better investment somehow.
Yeah, it would be cool just to have it for a couple nights and then get rid of it. Be like, I got pictures with it and I'm playing on it. And then you're like, okay, I'll sell it,
Well, I think we've covered a ton of ground here. This was a fun show. And the fact is, you and I, other than the Pantera thing, we didn't really have anything prepared we were going to talk about, but I could just talk rock with you. And hopefully the audience enjoyed it. I know the audience loves hearing from military guys and special operators, but I really like to switch things up now and again. And hopefully some of, as you said, maybe the blabbermouth audience and that type of rock audience hears this and ends up checking out some of our other stuff.
We should try to do it. Yeah, dude, we should try to do it again. Just do a rock show. But like you said, I want to thank, all the service members for their service, and everything like that. Thanks to all those guys for keeping us safe during troubled times and stuff. I know there's some guys out there listening, and, maybe I'll have some new music for them to jam out to. Hopefully we don't see any warfare coming up, hopefully everything gets figured out, and when you told me the other day that I had to fill in for Tonto. So I ate my Wheaties today and I ran around the block 4 times, and then I picked up the gun and practiced, my drills and stuff like that. So then I was about ready, but I'm not at his level. I'm still, I could probably, maybe I need to take a dip, that's it.
That's great, man. Yeah, no, that's him all the way, all day, every day. So as always, guys, check out Jimmy Allen on Instagram at Jimmy Allen Songwriter. I got to throw that in there, at Jimmy Allen Songwriter, JIMMY Allen Songwriter. And leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a comment on there. We're trying to get those numbers up. We're still new to YouTube, and we really could use the support there. Of course, Chris will be in next episode. Did I just lose you there? It now says, there we go. I got you now.
Yeah, my battery was dying.
All right, well, we're going to be done in a second anyway. But next show, Chris will be back. Of course, we got Brad Thor coming on, who just released Rising Tiger. Brad Thor is the man. 21st book in the Scott Harvath series. Anything else before we get out of here, bro?
No, just hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode of the Battleline podcast, but we'll be back on Monday with more American straight talk. Until then, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at Battleline Pod. To sign up for future Battleline tactical courses, go to www.craftedbyjimmy.com. christantoparanto.net. Believe in yourself, face all challenges head on, and as always, never quit.